I'm Jessica Renan. This is Inside and Outside. I am a horticultural therapist, author. Lately, I've been doing brand work again. And I'm also the founder of Basker, where I help people use nature and gardening for mental and social well-being. Before we get to it, I have 2 events coming up. On October 25th, I'm hosting an in-person class in Charleston, South Carolina at Redux Contemporary Art Center on how to make a podcast. I'll teach you how to concept it, ways to edit and record, intro music and art, how to land your dream guest, and even how to monetize it. And then on October 26th, I'm hosting an hour-long social hangout that's virtual. In this, I'll be sharing a little bit about what horticultural therapy is. And then after, we'll be doing a little art and craft together. There is a very big loneliness epidemic happening right now in our world, and I also know that a lot of us are stressed and overwhelmed. So this is going to give you an hour of calm, an hour to hang out with nice people. I've priced it at $25, so it can be affordable to most, but if $25 is too much for you, message me and we'll work something out. You can go to the events page at baskergardens.com to sign up, and I'll put this in the show notes. Okay, today's show. I'm talking to Marisa Meltzer. She is a journalist who has covered beauty, fashion, wellness, and celebrities for the New York Times, the New Yorker, Vogue, Vanity Fair, a million places. And she's also a New York Times bestselling author. She wrote Glossy, which I absolutely loved. It was a book just do a deep dive into Glossier. This is Big, How Sassy Changed My Life. And her latest book is called It Girl, which chronicles the life of Jane Birkin. I love this conversation so much, but I will also say that the sound is not great in some parts. A little staticky, a little echoey, and I couldn't fix it. So as you listen, I want you to pretend like you're listening to 2 people talking on a long distance call on a landline circa 2000. And then it feels really good and cozy. I really admire Marisa's work, and I'm excited about this one. Last, and then we're going to get to the show, I swear. I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone that sent messages about last week's episode. I got some great emails, some good audio messages, and I'll have to say, I missed that. You know, I have a lot of friends that are podcasters and people that do newsletters, and across the board, everyone says that there's been a huge drop-off on people messaging and communicating with them about episodes or things that they've written, and I miss those conversations. I don't know if it's because we're overwhelmed, we don't want to be in the front of the computer anymore. You think that you're bothering someone, but it's nice to get the feedback sometimes and know that you're not just talking into the void in your linen closet. So thank you for those messages. We used to have a whole Facebook group for the podcast back in the day, and since I don't fuck with the Zuck anymore, I took that down. But yeah, if you've got thoughts and feelings about the episodes, don't email me about how you hate my voice or I'm annoying, because I don't want that feedback. But I like your feedback about the topics that we talk about. So thank you. All right, here's Marisa. First, a message from this week's sponsor, Semaine. I'll talk to you on the other side. This episode is brought to you by Semaine. Semaine originally got me hooked with their PMS and period care. It was really what I needed each month to take my symptoms down a notch and have a little buddy who cared. Since that first product, Semaine has a whole product line dedicated to helping women restore their health at the root and manage the symptoms that so many of us feel, but no one sees. We're talking about periods, stress, hormones, and GI and bladder health. And let's not forget perimenopause and menopausal symptoms. As a woman, even if you've never had bad periods or GI or bladder issues, if you have ovaries, you're going to go through perimenopause and menopause, and you might need a little help. Semaine's Peri-Meno Essentials is a multi-system support to help with hot flashes, mood swings, and night sweats, which can help boost your happiness, sleep better, and feel more like you. It was clinically studied to ease 14 measures of menopause within 4 weeks, which is incredible. Semaine wants to help women through all stages of their life, stages that have historically been brushed off, pushed aside, and made women feel alone in their struggles. This is a huge reason why I love Semaine and trust them, because I can tell you they truly care. And like I said, it started with one product, and fast forward to today, you can find Semaine at Walmart, H-E-B Grocery, Amazon, and Thrive Market. And if you want to shop directly from their site, SemaineHealth.com, get 20% off with code INSIDEOUTSIDE20 for new customers. You can find help with stress, hormones, periods, and perimenopause and menopause. That's SemaineHealth.com, SEMAINE health.com, to get 20% off your order using code INSIDEOUTSIDE20. I'll make sure to include this in the show notes too. Marisa, thank you for being here. TGIF, I don't know if anyone has ever chose a 4 o'clock on a Friday, which I was really excited about.
Really? I'm such an afternoon person.
I love it.
I'm like a morning person and a late afternoon, evening person, but the middle of the day from like noon until 2 or 3, I try not to do anything, or at least
Well,
not
I
have
was
to do
excited about
anything.
this.
Yeah. So yeah, this is
Yeah,
a great time for me.
perfect. So we are going to jump into your book, but first, this podcast is called Inside and Outside, and I kick off every single episode with asking my guests first nature memory or a time that nature impacted them.
I I grew up in a place that's sort of famous for being beautiful. I grew up in Santa Cruz, California. Um, and you know, the the house that my father that I partially grew up in, that my father still lives in, had a redwood tree in the front yard. But basically my whole sort of life was spent being really kind of like ornery about nature and beauty, and just always being kind of mad that I wasn't in London or something like that I deemed more interesting, and also just more personality. I was sort of like the black sheep in a outdoorsy hiking and surfing kind of family.
Mm-hmm.
But I have so many early memories of just, the beach and sand and wild fennel and wisteria and sort of, all the things that grow. And I haven't lived in California for a really long time, but when I go back and get off the plane, like the smells and the flora are really kind of what like instantly take me back and give me kind of this memory thing. And then whenever I'm somewhere that has kind of a similar climate and similar nature, like, Mediterranean, or certain things that grow in Australia, I get this like real kind of nostalgia hit.
Is it a good nostalgia?
Yes, because it's kind of idealized, like a perfume of like, oh, you know, it's close to sunset and there's a little breeze, and you know, it smells um really like kind of salty, and fog is rolling in, and I'm putting on a sweater and I'm going to go get a burrito or something very like classically Californian. And those are kind of like the hazy, fond memories, and not all the times when I felt like, an outcast, or I was the kind of kid that was just waiting for like my real life to start, to kind of be like a teenager or an adult. Like I was kind of just killing time until college.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because I actually went to high school my junior and senior year in Monterey, California.
You did? Where did you
And
go?
Monterey High School, just
Oh,
straight up
because
Monterey High
I
School.
went to Robert Louis Stevenson, which is in Pebble Beach, which is
Oh,
right
yeah.
nearby. Yeah, that's where I went to high school.
Yeah. And oh, wow. And so it was nuts because I was kind of a gothy kid, and it was a hellscape to me to
Oh,
live in a place that had sun and the beach. And I've never heard anyone else talk about it that way, because to me, I felt so out of place and just not myself and
Where
just
had you lived
longed, like you
before?
said. Well, I moved there from North Carolina. And
Okay.
so it
Okay.
was huge culture shock. And I mean, this is also pre-internet, right? So I only had my magazines and my little CD player, and I ended up meeting another girl and we were best friends with a skater boy, and that was like the three of us. No, that area of Monterey and Carmel, my first like job was in Carmel at this place called Thunderbird Cafe. And I mean, it's a very affluent place too. And so when you're kind of a grimy kid, you're rebelling not only against the sun, but money. And so it was interesting. I actually got my nose pierced in Santa Cruz when I was 18. My friend drove me there because I didn't know where to get it done in
Yeah, yeah. Santa
Monterey. I
Cruz
was
is
like,
the kind of
let's get
place
our
for you
nose.
to, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I got my
So
nose
yeah.
pierced at Lollapalooza in Mountain View when I was, how they let me do it, even though I was very under, I think I was 15 or something like that, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I relate to all of that. Except I was born there, so I was just sort of spent
Wow.
my whole life. I was born in Berkeley, and so I spent my life. And my parents are also, natives of the Bay Area, so I just really felt like I came out of the womb not fitting in. And but
Yeah.
then, actually, California probably has some of the most dedicated goths in the world. I mean, Morrissey is huge in Southern California, and
Yeah.
there's like some of the warmest places, like Florida and California, have huge populations of goths. So it's definitely a thing, I think, of being
Yes.
of a certain manifestation of being an outcast. But I
Yes,
also
for
like
sure.
loved the high school I went to and found very close friends there. But I was kind of like, but this isn't really art. This is what we're doing until our real life start when we go to college outside of
Gosh.
California. I
And I
couldn't
think
wait to get
that's why
out.
I was, yeah. And I think, I was excited to, when I reached out to you about your new book, which we'll talk about. I mean, my dream was to go to Paris and live a life in Paris. And I thought that was what I was destined to do when I left California.
Yeah, a lot of people
Um,
do. Yeah.
yeah. But I thought I could, make it and be the cool Parisian girl.
Yeah, I
Um,
did too.
so where do you feel like the first place that you ever lived that you did feel like you?
That it did feel like me. Different. I would say honestly, probably New York. It was like I think of it as I'm really not ADHD. I kind of think I'm like whatever the opposite of that is. But the way that people with ADHD are, I think, given like Ritalin or Adderall, which is like a stimulant, but it supposedly makes them calm or focused or whatever the theory is kind of how I feel about New York. Like I'm a very low energy person, and being in New York around all of the sort of craziness makes me feel much more calm. I feel really like neurotic and nuts in small towns. And I
Yes,
feel
I get
instantly at
that.
home in any city. And New York's kind of unique, um, I don't know, kind of in your face and aggressiveness just really suits me. I never have lived somewhere where I've never really had a hard time making friends, but I've never lived somewhere where it was just everyone kind of got me. Like I'd spent so much of my childhood being told that I needed to relax and calm down and like be less stressed out. And everyone in New York thought I seemed plenty calm, if not admirably. I felt like I was accepted with my people. Paris is like that too, though. Paris is also kind of an intense city where I feel very at home.
Me too. So before we move to your inside, and thank you for sharing your outside, but on this podcast, every episode, I also bring some type of study or research or article about how nature can change us. I try to relate it to the guest as best as I can. And this one isn't necessarily about how nature can change us, but I just thought you might find this to be interesting. So this was a study done in 2017 about the French gardening craze of 1908. And what happened with this was, and I didn't even actually realize that Daily Mail was around this long, but this was one of the first, this is one of the first instances of Daily Mail being classic tabloid reporting that was
Wow.
kind of teetering on truth or exaggerated truth, we'll say. So the Daily Mail reported in 1908 that these French gardening practices, using certain types of manure, using certain type of glass to cover the produce that you're growing, could yield you 10 times the amount that standard British English gardening could give you. And so people got really obsessed with this. And what they found out is they were kind of exaggerating and it wasn't actually true.
Oh.
But I just thought this was so
Right.
fascinating that,
Another example of sort of the idealized French perfection, and also the eternal struggle between the English and the French.
yes. And just also the Daily Mail has been
They've been at
sensationalizing
it.
things
Yeah.
since
Over 100 years of,
1908.
yeah, over 100 years of exaggeration. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought this was just so fascinating. And yes, because your book, It Girl, is a lot about the fact that Jane Birkin was not a French woman, but she became this French icon. And I just, so I read your book, and first, I have so many thoughts and feelings about it. One, she's an amazing woman. I also felt a lot of sadness reading this. I don't know if you felt that sadness writing it. Did you know how complicated her life was going into writing this?
No, I knew some, but definitely not all. In fact, one of the challenges of the book was writing it without it just being like 100 pages of one tragedy after another, and just kind of being
Mm,
able to find happiness and hope, and not because it's like when you're writing, it's easy, or rereading, it's kind of happening in this other timeline, and I'm moving things around, and then, you know, people also aren't necessarily reading something in one day, and so thinking that they're spending maybe weeks reading about this person's sort of sad last, couple decades, was a lot. So that was one of the bigger challenges in the narrative of the book, but also that kind of felt true and real to, the challenges of someone's life. It's so easy to kind of say, and things were hard, and it was one bad thing after another, and it was important for me to not gloss over her life and say, no, there were these things that she was still touring. She still had a lot of joy. It wasn't just every day was drudgery, but there were a lot of um, sad things that happened to someone who was famous for seeming like everything was easy and fun. And,
yeah.
that is very intriguing, kind of what people are allowed to show publicly, or what they choose to, and kind of the narratives imposed upon them.
And if I'm obsessed with the Jane Birkin story, obviously you wrote a whole book about it, but if someone has never heard of her before, can you sum it up in a little summary for someone that's listening for the first time?
Yeah, so Jane Birkin is the kind of ultimate, one of the ultimate muses, I would say, of the 20th century. She was a kind of classic it girl in the multi hyphenate sense, where she was a singer and an actress, and she was the namesake for the Birkin bag, and she had a very long relationship with Serge Gainsbourg, who was kind of like he's kind of like a Bob Dylan meets Barbara Streisand meets like, I don't know, Bruce Springsteen meets Phil Spector, like kind of occupies this place in the French kind of identity that was very important. And anyway, she was also known as this kind of very stylish, sprightly, kind of perfect Parisian woman. And I had a feeling that there was a lot more to her than someone who was just always kind of the muse or, the inspiration or the kind of, carefree, happy girl who wore mini skirts and had great bangs. And it turns out she had a very rich and interesting life and also emotional life.
And as I was reading it, the thing I kept on thinking about was, you had access to her journals, but then I think it was in the author note or the epilogue how, none of her family had agreed to participate in the book. Do you think you could have written this without the journals?
Um, I could have written a version because people write biographies, for people that don't have journals all the time. And,
But I
biographies
guess
can
like
take
would you have wanted to write it?
if I didn't, if I hadn't known, if they had never existed, maybe because she is someone that has a huge, just like life footprint in that there were, she'd been famous since she was a teenager. So there was just so much to draw upon. It, but I guess it would have just been a very different book. I mean, part of what was really fascinating about this book was that you did have her journals. So, there were many things that happened. And then you also had this intimate sort of commentary, deeply personal and vulnerable. And she was very self aware of kind of what she actually felt about things. And of course, you're writing in journals and kind of often heightened emotional states, but it was a really rich added layer. But for example, my last book about Glossier had a lot, it had no journals, but had a lot of first person access to, Emily Weiss, the founder of the brand, who is still alive and who I interviewed and, kind of knew a little bit. And so I think each book can have different points of access and reference that give it a really rich story. And for this, those journals were, I think, really important.
Yeah, and I think it's also just that idea of not being able to argue with someone's words, right? Of like what they wrote and what they felt, but also knowing actually that guy was kind of abusive, but her denying it in some ways to herself. I think that is an interesting way to read it too, is, seeing how she viewed things and maybe how we would view things today, maybe a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard, I mean, I'm looking, there's a whole book that I have that is essays about reading Lolita, I think in kind of the post Me Too era. And yeah, I mean, it's really easy to write about something and try to kind of moralize it or psychoanalyze the person. And I really I try not to do that because for one, I'm not a psychologist and they're not my subject. And it feels very kind of lazy and presumptive to kind of try to say what I think was going on mentally, but also to, put the values or morals of sort of, present day America onto people that were living in Paris in the 1970s is not quite, um, doesn't sit right to me. It feels a bit judgmental and lazy. And I thought the best way to talk about what happened to her was instead of labeling it, talk about the words she used and how she described. Because one thing that everyone involved in the book was they'd all given very frank interviews all the time about their lives, and she had written in her journal honestly. So there was a lot to go off of, even if, someone had been like Serge Gainsbourg died, while I was still in like high school or junior high or something like that. So I, definitely never met him or got to interview him, but there was a lot there. And so I think kind of letting someone telling something kind of factually and describing what happened without trying to kind of add a layer of, you know, I don't know, my own morality or take, kind of lets the reader, I think, come away with their own opinions, and also, as I think, a little bit more responsible as a biographer. But then I also, in the epilogue, I wanted people to come away with sort of my overall takes on, her life, including why she was drawn over and over again to relationships with much older men who, some of whom are embroiled even to this day, and kind of, scandals and even
Yeah.
lawsuits for their behavior, and, what that means for her legacy.
Yeah, I thought you structured it in such a great way of just these are the facts, and at the end, this is how I feel. Because I will say in my 20s, I had a paper store, and all we played was Serge, like French music all day long. And, you know, at that age, I didn't know just how dark and abusive he was at times. And I don't know, it's just, I think there's always constant conversations about separating the art from the artist, but it's harder and harder to do that these days. And it was surprising some of the things that I read about him in this book.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a certain amount of affection for him, and I still do have affection for his music, but I definitely see both him and her in a different light. I think, when I was in my 20s and first kind of discovering their love affair in music through, people I dated in my own francophilia, I, really romanticized that relationship because it was very romantic. They were always, kind of all over each other in photos, both looking very cool, very European, singing really horny songs about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then, really looking at the text, the way that they talked about each other, the way that they um, treated each other. It's not that she was a saint and he was just a terrible, brute, but they were both embroiled in a very, I think, sort of complex dynamic, and you know I think their age difference and probably contributed the fact that, she was just someone who was in, like, went from relationship to relationship, often overlapping, from the time she was probably 16 or 17 until she was maybe in her like late 60s, had never been single.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's an interesting person kind of type to write about, because I'm not like that at all. And so, rather than trying to understand the way that she lived via the way that I want to live, it was more like, just tell the story of the decisions she made one by one, and make sense of it later.
Yeah. And one last note on this is just Charlotte. I just, well, all of her children. And again, I think that's something where I've always seen them as, this French royalty in a way that
Yeah, and
have
they are.
everything.
Yeah.
They are, but it's, with that came so much pain and just so much instability. I was
Yeah,
just even
it's a
reading
very
about
intense
the,
portrait of childhood in the public eye. I think that,
yes.
especially by today's standards, the way that people view raising children and the amount of sort of participation and kind of the standards are so different. There's a scene where she throws a party for her 12-year-old daughter at like midnight at a nightclub to go dancing and ring
Yeah.
in her birthday. And I can understand on this certain level why she would have thought that was a fun thing to do. And in some ways, my childhood was more like that than contemporary childhoods were. I was an only child to parents who I think were making similar decisions where they just wanted to be with me, but they also were young and they had other things to do, and they divorced when I was very, very, I don't really have memories of them being together. So it was like, it was an era of you can have it all, but that having it all came with me being exposed to a lot of things that were probably like, considered weird, like I went to bars as a child, like I went
Hmm.
to adult parties. I didn't have a childhood that was like very kid oriented. And so I relate to that in a lot of ways. And but theirs was a much more extreme version. And so I think
Lemon
I understood
incest.
which, sorry, yeah, no, my childhood did not include singing songs called Lemon Incest with my father. And
It's
again,
just
like
shocking.
you can see the way that Jane Birkin loves her children and paints herself as this wonderful mother. And in some ways, I think she was, but then she also made decisions or didn't, or rather let, other people make decisions, like, saying like, oh, yeah, like your dad wants to do this song called Lemon Incest. And I don't necessarily think that means that they were, I think it would be kind of ridiculous to be literal about the song, but
Yeah.
kind of a lack of like, wow, this is going to be something that you're going to have to talk about and answer for the rest of your life. Or like, you might get bullied in school for this, or like, people might think that you and your dad are weird. And that would be, maybe that's too much for, a, a like a tween to process. Maybe, maybe that's not, maybe we should let your father indulge in all of his artistic peccadillos. But she
Yeah.
didn't. And I think in some ways Jane Birkin was great for that kind of like laissez-faire attitude towards what her daughters learned and consumed and were able to be really creative. But I think that personally, the boundaries can be a good thing. And this is
Yeah.
a portrayal of a person without a lot of them in some ways.
And there's that old philosophy adage, I don't know what you want to call it, theory that when celebrities get famous, the age that they're at is sort of kind of where they stay mentally sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
And I mean,
There
she
does
was,
seem some, there does seem to be a lot of truth to that in our celebrity culture.
yeah. And with her, I mean, she became famous when she was 18,
Yeah.
7, however old, and
Yeah,
got
I would
married.
say,
It's
yeah.
just,
Yeah. Yeah. And she was married
she
at
didn't have the
18. Yeah.
tools.
Yeah. Yeah. She did not.
Wow. Well, this is, I thought, I was thinking a lot about your career. I was thinking a lot about your career. Sounds crazy, but I
Yeah,
was
no,
thinking about your career as I was,
tell me if you have any insights to pass on. I'd love to. I honestly am
but
all ears. Yeah.
I just, I have so many friends that write books, and, I think with what you're doing, you are a true journalist, right? Like you're able to kind of choose these topics to write about and write books about them. And I think so many people I know is they might have an idea or a concept, but then their publisher pushes them to create a whole Instagram account about that concept. And then they have to like send newsletters about this concept. And I think what's so cool, and I feel like there's fewer and fewer people that are able to do it the way that you're doing it. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. You mean just that I'm sort of all over the place?
But in the best way possible. Like, for instance, I have a friend that she wrote a book about I won't name the things she wrote about because I'll give it away. But okay, let's say she wrote her first book about tablecloths,
Huh?
and then she's got to sell a line of tablecloths, and then her second
Mm-hmm.
book is about um, I don't know, scissors, and it's like she needs to make 10 tutorials about how to cut things with scissors. And I just think that with a lot of publishers right now, I think we're in this culture where it's like create the book, but there also has to be so much content to support it. You have to be this expert at this. And I think what's cool is like in a true way of being a journalist, you're able to choose these topics and write about them and not have to create whole businesses and platforms around them, which, it's one of the reasons why I haven't really wanted to write another book, because mine were like very focused on, one was a women's health book, one was a book about plant-based food. And it just really felt like I was pigeonholing myself in these topics or areas. And I don't know, I think what you're doing is cool. And I think I was trying to think of other people. I came up with like two or other people that are doing what you're doing. And I think there's just not as many people that are able to do this now. It's like, it's gone the days of writing these like huge Vanity Fair pieces and getting paid a shit ton of money for it. It's harder to be a writer, as you know.
I do know. Who else do you think is doing what I'm doing? I'm just curious.
Like someone like Amy, what's her, Amy
Amy Odell?
Olsen? Oh, I'm sorry, Amy Odell. I knew an Amy Olsen in fashion, but Amy Odell writing like biographies,
Mm-hmm.
writing about fashion. I mean, I think Tina Brown is a little bit different because she was an editor, I think, but she will write a memoir about someone. But I think it's different now.
Oh, it
I
definitely
think
is.
it's
I mean,
harder to
I'm
do.
very flattered to be compared to Tina Brown in any way, but no, I mean, I think that my publishers or just anyone, I sometimes think I'd be much better at my job if I was better at being sort of like, and here on TikTok, I'm doing, all of these things about French girl style and breaking it down. And I don't know. I mean, that is kind of how it works, but I also I'm not that good at that. And it's not where sort of my strong point or expertise lies. And so I try to just go with what I'm good at and make myself very available for people, who do want to do those things. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Sometimes I
it
think it's
just
just like laziness.
well, I mean, I think what's cool is like you do these French girl TikToks, and then, 3 months from now, you don't have to do them again. Whereas I think sometimes we get stuck in that, and then you're supposed to write another book about French girl style and then do like a journal about it or something. I don't know. It's just, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are writing, and just it's the amount of money that they're getting for pieces these days. It's not a sustainable life. And I think that's why a lot of them do influencer stuff,
Sure.
because in between writing books, it's like, what else am I supposed to do? I'm going to hawk this, spaghetti sauce and serum to make money.
Yeah,
No offense against hawking serums. I've done it before.
I have too. But yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard for everyone, including me.
And do you think that, I mean, I hate after someone's done a big project and it's like, what's next? But in your gut, do you like writing these types of books? Like, is this something that you want to continue to do?
I do. I really love it. Yeah, I think I mean people do all kinds of things for money, but doing these kind of books for money alone would be pretty hard because it's just an obscene amount of work. And so if it's not something that you're interested in, it's not like a great hourly pay rate, and it's
Mm-mm.
it's a lot of like it should be like a incredible nerdy desire of yours. Otherwise, I just think it already kind of like you already spent enough time researching that you're kind of losing it. That if it wasn't something that just infinitely interested you, and if you weren't the kind of person that gets off on just like learning new facts and research about something, it's not a great career choice. So yeah, I
Yeah,
do really
yeah.
love it, and I got this book deal just kind of by chance. right like a month before my last book came out. So I did them truly back to back with, I don't know, I think I took maybe kind of a week off between. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so these were, so yeah, I've been in it. So I don't know what I'm exactly, writing next in terms of books, but partly because I've had not a lot of time to think about it, but I think about it. I'm stressed out about it all the time, actually.
Do you think you would have, and I obviously you don't have to drop numbers, but do you think that you would have gotten a bigger advance for It Girl if Glossy had come out already? Because that was a pretty big hit.
Yeah, I don't, it's really hard. It's so hard to know. I think it's hard to know also because I think if I had waited, perhaps someone else would have sold a biography of Jane Birkin because she had just
Mm,
died. And so, if someone else sold one and is working on it, then, that sometimes means that no one else is going to buy, it's too hard to know.
yeah.
And the
I'm just
industry
fascinated
is
by
fickle.
advances.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
don't, who could say? I made the choice that seemed the wisest for me at the time,
yeah,
which
no,
was
for
sort of
sure.
like
I'm just, yeah,
offer on the table.
yes, please. I know. I'm just fascinated by advances. It's like I have one friend that got like 90 for her cookbook, and then 2 years later they offered her 45. And it's like, it's so just based on trends or what the publisher's feeling or what house you're with. It feels stressful to write at times.
It
Um,
is.
yes, it is. So let's move inside. We're already inside because we're writing, but on every episode, I have my guests share a book, TV, or movie they're obsessed with, internet gossip they need to discuss, or a trend that they want to see go away. What are you sharing with us today?
Today, I am really excited to talk about the Acorn original TV show that's called Irish Blood, starring Alicia Silverstone.
So, I'm a TV addict.
Are you?
I
I'm not.
really,
So it's exciting for me
my
when I
God.
find something that I really respond to.
And I had not, experienced the Acorn experience yet. So when you
Oh,
sent
you're
that to me,
welcome.
I
Yeah.
signed up for my free trial. I did 3 episodes last night. And it's really good. It's fun. Tell me why you like it.
Why do I like it? I find it very both entertaining and comforting. I love mysteries, but sometimes I find them a little slow or too cozy. Like this is kind of a all kind of a cozy mystery, but the ones that are really cozy mysteries are often like too upbeat or cute for me. Um,
Hmm.
I do really like darkness, but then if it's like too slow and too in the weeds, I'm just not it. I get for some reason just easily distracted by TV shows. I feel like there's just a whole graveyard, I guess, of series for which I've watched one episode and feel like I'm going to eventually watch another one and then never do. Um, I was, I saw it and was like, this seems intriguing. And I downloaded the first 2 episodes and watched them while I was super jet lagged on the first few days of vacation over the summer. I was in Milan at a friend's apartment and they weren't in town. And Milan was also completely basically shut down for the very end of kind of their annual vacation. And also because it was like the Day of Assumption, which is like a, big Catholic holiday. So
Hmm.
truly it was this, I've never seen a city so empty. And I was jet lagged and it was really hot out. And I was just very happy to be spending my first few days of vacation after a summer that was very intense with working, just kind of like drinking wine and reading, and then just like sitting in an air conditioned bedroom at night, um, watching this show. the first two episodes. It was just like, you have those moments where you're like, right now I'm very content. I felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my most favorite things in life is to take a little bit of an edible, have it hit as I sit down to like the best meal of my life watching a show in bed. It's like,
Oh,
and when I do it, I
yes.
literally go like,
I
like I
know,
just
me
feel like
too.
it's
It's really, I'm like that, except I like to eat first. I'm a very
Mhm.
like, I think I'm a little old school in that I don't like if I feel like I need to start scrolling or looking at my phone, I turn it off. I don't. I can scroll while I'm listening to podcast, but not a TV show. Like I for some reason can't
For
do them
sure.
both at the same. I don't feel like if I'm not appreciating, if the show is not drawing me in wholly, then it's not for me to watch. So yeah, I like to drink like one glass of wine, eat, and then I'm having my second just after as I put the show on.
Just
Yeah,
the
I
ultimate
know. And maybe
luxury.
then I like get a little bit ready for a dessert and then I bring in like my chocolate bar or whatever, my popsicle, whatever
Yes.
I've bought before um for maybe like the second episode and then I go to
And
bed.
by the third episode of Irish
I don't
Blood,
make it to the third. Yeah,
I was
like
gua shawing with a serum.
oh, that's I mean, that like just gets to the pleasure center for me right there. So yeah, I
Yes.
am especially because those are the kinds of pleasurable things I can do for myself when I'm in the middle of like book writing. Like those were the kinds of highlights of the last couple of years of my life because I have spent basically the last, I don't know, like 4 years, really 5 years writing really intensely books and then like journalism and other stuff. And I've definitely had a social life, but there have been periods of like months where I just wrote every day and barely saw anybody. And so those are the kinds of things I could do as an outlet for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a big TV person, so it's exciting when I find something that I can have that kind of moment with.
So did you finish the series?
No, I've saved it. I also just got involved in like other things and
Okay.
work and reading books for work or like for life and stuff. So I have two episodes left. They also
Okay.
weren't released as a like a one block. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
like
Cool.
which I think was kind of cool. I think they did two at a time over like a month or 3 weeks or something like that. So I have the last two waiting for me and I'm going to Paris next week for like 2 or 3 days. So my idea is like I'm gonna watch them on the plane or something like that, or like in the middle of the night while I have terrible jet lag.
One last thing I want to say about Acorn TV, similar to BritBox and other British shows that are on Peacock, is
Hmm.
it's just so refreshing to see like normal faces that haven't had a ton of work done. And I don't mind looking at a face that has a lot of work done, but Alicia Silverstone and the other people in the show, and just
Hmm.
I think in general,
That's
a lot
one
of
thing you
British
see about
television.
European stuff too. I mean, being in France and researching the book and watching French movies so much also for research, but also just like movie posters and kind of what's around you. It is really refreshing to be like, people can be beautiful, but they can also look their age and they can look like they've lived a life. And that's okay and accepted. And then you see the other kind of faces and you're like, oh, right, we all kind of look like, our famous people look like aliens a little bit.
Who, because seeing Alicia Silverstone was like, oh my gosh, like it was cool to see that she hasn't done stuff to her face. And I think that was something at the end of the It Girl book too, that Jane had chosen not to do like any sort of facelifts or anything. I don't know. It's just more and more it feels weird that it's shocking to see
I
an
know,
untouched
which is called
face.
also because Alicia Silverstone looks incredible and is
Yes.
very beautiful and But yeah, it's like, oh wow, she kind of looks like a woman in her late 40s, and she's bigger, which is not to say that she is fat. She's probably wears like a size 6 or something, but she's bigger than when she
Right.
was 16, as everyone is. And, she looks like she's 30 years older, which is
Normal
again
person, but
how life
beautiful.
works,
Yes.
and beautiful, and way more beautiful, than I am at this age. But it's like so refreshing. Like we're grasping at straws. And that is really nice, is watching a show full of people, some of whom are hot, some of whom are supposed to just be kind of, like normal townspeople. But there is something very refreshing about it. And it's an interesting plot. It's a woman who is born and raised in LA, but has this like Irish father who mysteriously fled LA when she was, I think, supposed to be maybe 10 years old or something, and then finds out he's dead when she is in her, I think she's supposed to be like mid 40s or something like that, and goes back to Ireland to investigate what happened.
And that's and you mentioned this a little bit, but when it comes to any sort of mystery or thriller, I need a little bit of wink wink. It's not like so dark and so serious. And this has that, which I need. Like, I can't do like a Law and Order or something like that. Like, that stuff is so dark to me. But this felt like, it's not necessarily like, comic relief, but there's a
It's
little
not like
bit of
comedy. It's not sort of funny, like Desperate Housewives or something, with like a show that's ostensibly about death, but really is like hot and sexy. But it is kind of like she'll be in scenarios and kind of think, there's a certain self-awareness that she has that I appreciate. I just liked it. At first, I thought I was going to watch it for kind of like escapism, camp value, try it out. And then I realized it was actually pretty good. Very well done. And it's very much like shot where it was set and in real places. So you have that sort of transportive element of Ireland. I think it's County Wicklow, which is south of Dublin. So it just feels like you're somewhere else. And
have you watched
really
the
nice.
Sharon Horgan show that takes place in Ireland?
The Bad Sisters one?
Yes, Bad Sisters. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't finish it. Of course, like but I watched part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a abandoned show person, I'm
really bad that way. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited for people to get your book. And if people want to find more about you, where should they go?
I have a website, marisameltzer.com, that has like events and links and all of that. I'm on Instagram, marisameltzer.com. I have a Substack,
Great. Well, I'll include links to all of that. Thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure.
That's the show. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode or any of the episodes, leave a review. You don't even have to write anything. Just leave a 5-star review on Spotify. Here's how you do it. Find that little gear icon next to the show. Hit it. There's a little drop down. Rate this show 5 stars. Go back to your day. And if you want to know more about Basker or working with me to do horticultural therapy, head to baskergardens.com. Lots of it. Lots and lots about it in the show notes. I'll talk to you next week.